being experienced by the naira at the foreign exchange market. There was a sudden surge for dollars at the market, particularly at the central bank's bi-weekly auction. Now, of course, the central bank blamed importers for this, particularly the petroleum marketing importers who were bringing refined crude into the country. That put so much pressure on the naira that it began to trade outside the central bank's target band of 150 naira, between 150 naira to 153 naira. So the central bank said that it had to intervene at that point. So that's why it called that emergency meeting. So we saw rates being hiked once again, and the central bank did take some policies concerning the naira. But he had to put more flesh to that and give us his own perspective on the journey so far from last year, January last year, up until now, in terms of interest rate decision, fighting inflation and ensuring that interest rates remain stable, is Femi Ademola to give us his own perspective. Thank you so much, Femi, for being here. Now, we're coming from 12 months, 6 rate hikes. So many analysts have been given all kinds of views as to whether or not the central bank should have raised rates as much as 6. So coming from then to now, how would you rate the central bank's policies right there in terms of raising interest rates?
It is not going to be an issue of it is good or it is bad. It's about what's the objective of the monetary authority. Like you rightly pointed out the last time, the most important objective of the policy of the monetary authority is to ensure that they have moderated inflation rate and they have stable foreign exchange market. They want credit growth to be positive, and I think they want positive real return on fixed income instruments. Now, there are some other objectives that they have not seemed to put on the forefront. Say, one is creating employment, and the other one is ensuring that we have improved local capacity, so that there can be employment and all things like that. But the earlier four have been the major objective that they put on the forefront. And if you look at the indices we've been having so far, it necessitated those actions that have taken place. Now, we would say as analysts that this is getting too aggressive and too insane. Yes, you can control to a kind of extent, but at the end of the day, the overall growth, the long-term growth of the economy is paramount.
So are you saying now that so at some point last year, especially towards the end of 2011, that the central bank got a little paranoid about fighting or curbing inflation, as it were?
You see, like I said, it is not only inflation they were targeting.
But it seemed at the point that was what that was just like the major focus. They did talk about helping to spur growth, but it looked like at the point that it was just inflation that the central bank was most concerned about.
Yes, but if you remember very well, last year the most aggressive increase in MPR was to fight foreign exchange instability, and that time, because we always give like a preview to what we think they will do. One thing we said about then was that, okay, fine, you could increase the MPR by, like say, 25 basis points to 50 basis points, or maximum of 100 basis points. But what must happen is there must be a shift in the exchange rate midpoint. Just what I'm saying, because we use the managed float. Every time you use the managed float for exchange rate policy management, you are subjected to some specific attack at a point in time. When people feel that your local policy might be hurting your currency, they want to shift into some other kind of currency. We have the same experience in Mexico and some other Asian countries.
So is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened to us. And that's why at that time, because MPC did not move the rate at that time, they had to do the meeting in November to now adjust the rate to a midpoint of 155. Which analysts have been shouting that they should move from 150 to 155 before. Because that's one thing that could have copped it. Even after the aggressive 275 basis point increase in October, we did not achieve that foreign exchange stability immediately until when we now shift the goalpost, as in the midpoint of the foreign exchange rate to 155, so that we have the band around 161, thereabout lower.
Yeah, but the central bank did complain that, okay, of course it had to maintain foreign exchange stability, but fighting that surge in demand, that repeated surge in demand for the dollar at the market seemed like something the central bank at a point wasn't able to handle.
Yes, they would have. See, like I said, in every organization, or let me say no, in every establishment, in every country, the operators are usually faster than the regulators. The operators, the analysts,
always look for a way of just moving around.
Yeah, they even see things faster than the regulator. Most of these guys have seen that the way we're going, we need to depreciate the naira.
So wait, let me come in here again. You're saying that they feel that the central bank is predictable, and they know just looking at events in especially at the forex market, they know how to predict the next move of the central bank.
Not exactly predicting the movement of the move of the CCBN, but it is about predicting the market. Now, the market has moved in such a way that naira is under pressure, and therefore the best thing for it to do is to depreciate against the dollar. That's why a lot of people are shouting that we have to devalue the naira, But CBN thought otherwise, thinking that it is more of speculative attack on the foreign exchange, and that if we increase interest rate so that they don't have access to that fund, liquidity to be buying the foreign exchange, it will calm down. But that's not the situation.
So at no point you're saying was there any speculative activity going on in the market?
Of course it was. I'm saying it was happening, but what I'm saying is it is not liquidity induced. It is analytic about where the market is going. It is induced based on the fact that these guys are saying that Nigeria, most of the policy we have created is weakening the naira, and therefore the best thing we could do at that time was to officially move the naira to a midpoint. Analysts have said it, even we have projected and said the way it's going, even at the market, the band has been stretched. Therefore, the best thing to do is expand the band by move to 155. It will come these guys as, okay, fine, these guys are responsive. You are supposed to be reactive anyway. But what we try to do is, okay, let's fight them by stopping the fund flow, by fighting, by reducing liquidity through increase in interest rate. But it didn't work because most of these guys, I mean, what that means is that CBN believe that the source of liquidity to this speculative activity is from borrowing. But maybe not. This guy had to come somewhere and they're doing it. The liquidity source might not even be from Nigeria, might be from foreign sources for them to do this speculative.
But couldn't we, isn't there a way of actually pinpointing or just knowing just exactly where that was coming from? Well,
we could, but the thing about it is that it doesn't work like that. I was listening to Paul Volcker, former chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank at a point, and he was saying things about the thing that there's no way you can close all the gaps. When you start fighting the interest rate, some other guys will be working on money supply from the other angle. You can't focus on the two at the same time. You have to take one and give the other. So when you are fighting there's tendency that from other side, guys will be working from that thing. So what you need to do is just to look at which one benefits the economy at the end of the day. Well, I mean, there are so many, like I said, there are trade-offs here, right? What I'm saying, like I've explained before that, okay, these are the main objectives that you get put on the forefront. But there are some other objectives that are more important, like economic growth overall, creating of employment, and ensuring that local capacity is built through access to funds. In terms of
balancing inflation and spurring growth at the same time, how has the central bank, has it done a good job in balancing both?
I doubt it completely. In my opinion, no, not at all. The focus has always been on checking inflation. In so many instances, you need to reinflate the economy to grow.
But at some time, at some point, one of the meetings, I'm not sure, I think it was towards the end of the year, it did record positive figures in terms of money supply of credit to the private sector.
Yes, we recorded. In fact, it's part of the thing we've seen. In the earlier part of the year, first two quarters of the year, we're having negative growth in credit. But by the middle of the year, we start seeing growth. And the year ended about 26% growth in credit. However, when we look at it, because, for example, you listen to MEN will continue to complain that we can't produce because high cost of operation, high cost of finance, it is killing us. When you look at SMEs, they are not getting access to it because these guys have to go to the retail side to get the credit. But we now discover that the growth in credit might have been due to the CBN intervention in the sector. All these, their public sector intervention fund, power, agriculture, real estate, all those entertainment funds, all these they're talking about. So that might have been the source of the credit growth, which is positive. Fine. But the point about this thing is that the real guys, the real engine of the economy are the SSMEs. How many people
with these small and medium enterprises?
Small and medium enterprises. Those are the guys that are the engine of the economy. When you go to the US, you hear Timothy Geithner continue to saying that the strength of the economy, American economy, is its local employment generation.
So what would you have the central bank does when it's faced with a situation where it has to curb inflation? On the other hand, of course, when it raises interest rates, that comes down to the average entrepreneur who has to pay higher lending rates, because if the central bank transfers higher rates to the banks of course transfer it out to their customers.
Exactly.
So at what point can we strike the balance?
The thing about it is that the first thing is what exactly is the target of the government? CBN, the fiscal authority, they are this one and the same. There must be collaboration between the two of them, and look at it and say, what exactly do you want to achieve? Do you want to spur economic growth to the SME, or want to keep fighting inflation? In so many instances, there's trade-off. Look, all this one you're saying about maintaining balance, there's always a minority opinion from the MPC. When you read their communique every time they do it, every 2 months they do it, there's always a minority opinion saying that, look, we are punishing the economy unnecessarily with this inflation tightening or this monetary.
But the central bank takes this frustrated, stance that says, look, what can we do? I mean, the government keeps taking an expansionary budget that will put more money into the economy. Last year we had the activities of AMCON, billions of naira, almost up to a trillion was pumped into the economy. The central bank, of course, has to rein in some of that cash back.
Why would CBN rein in the same AMCON that he created? Why did CBN create AMCON? It was CBN that created AMCON, not the fiscal authority.
Yes, to solve one other problem.
Fantastic. So why will you be releasing money from one angle and taking that from the other angle? What does it solve?
Perhaps to create a balance.
That's the problem. Which balance? The thing about it is that
not having too much money in supply in circulating the economy.
My argument is this: fiscal policy, monetary policy. Who are they representing? The government. The two of them had to work together. In fact, the fiscal policy gives the instruction to the fiscal authority gives instruction to the monetary authority on what needs to be done. Now, if the fiscal authority said we want to support the economic growth and we don't care about the inflation that we're at, then monetary policy must stop tightening the economy. You must let it go. Yours is to advise and say, if you expand this way, this is the effect of that in inflation.
This is how high inflation will go.
We'll go to, and the next thing the guy will look at that and say, can I do with this? Exactly. In 2003, we had probably the best economic growth so far in Nigeria, and that's probably the highest inflation we saw as well in 2003.
Perhaps as high as 15%.
Exactly, but the economic growth was, at the end of the day, we have real economic growth of about 10%. Now, what that means is that we poor growth. Now, I mean, I keep telling people that particular growth was because of the COJA we hosted and the Commonwealth Head of Government meeting that we hosted, brought a lot of people to Nigeria, economy was booming, but we need that. See, the thing about it is that there are other ways of fighting foreign exchange. People will be talking about Nigeria is import dependent, and that's the problem. So
well,
is it interest rate? Yes, we are.
And this is a part of the structural defense in the economy.
If we still keep increasing interest rate so that the local guys cannot raise financing to do their production, how will local production increase? Now, Dunlop and Michelin left Nigeria because they couldn't compete with the foreign import. And what did government do then? Government increased the tariff on import and make the tariff for the local guys to be lower so that they can be at par and sell well. But what would the government do afterward? Increase the tariff again for the local guys so that they be at the same thing with the importers, and they couldn't compete again. And all these guys will not manufacture again. They have to go. We need to look at policies that make sense. If you want to stop import, put tariffs to check import. Ensure that the local guys can compete with those guys and move on, not increasing interest rate that affects the local guys as well. CBN said this in intervening. Yes, intervening in what? How many people are getting it? The highest contributor to the growth in Nigeria is agriculture, which is giving us almost 40 to 50% of our growth. Who are these guys in agriculture? The peasant, the subsistence farmer, the local farmers. Those are the guys. Are these guys the guys that will go to BOI to go and assess intervention fund? Now, these guys will not be able to meet the criteria specified by the CBN. But the banks are supposed to be creative enough to know how to work around with them. But the banks don't have any incentive to give them fund. Why would they?
But I think, sorry, but at some point last year, I know the central bank did come up with this scheme where it reorganized the portfolios of some of the banks that were holding loans to some farmers. Yeah. I thought that was meant to spur or at least encourage more lending to the agricultural sector. How would you encourage more lending when, if a credit goes bad, the next thing to do is to sack the MD? That's number one, the disadvantage. That is one disincentive for the banks to lend. The second one is if there's proper risk management, you look at the risk profile of the SME, whoever it is that's coming to.
And I've been in risk management. When you are lending, at that particular point in time, everything might look good, but there's something called condition that will change afterward. And when that thing changes, it can kill all those ones. That condition might not be self-caused, it might be politically inclined. I just give you an example of Dunlop and Michelin now. Dunlop just borrowed money to invest in ASRD plant in Aba to be producing truck tires.
Was the bank aware of this move, this business decision? Because I would imagine that they will be talking to the bank. Okay, this is what we're doing with the money at this stage.
They were, but the thing about it, like I said, government was encouraging local production by increasing its tariff on import, so that the cheap import from China is selling at the same price you Dunlop produce in Nigeria. Therefore, it's you that will not choose. Oh, I prefer the one that's made for Nigerian road rather than for Chinese road. But what happened? Immediately after the guys finish their plant or start production, the new government that got there remove that tax incentive for the local guy.
Okay, so policy somersaults.
So what happened to the bank? The credit goes bad, and then the MD was sacked for that one. Condition changed, and that could happen. Look at what happened in the banking sector. All these crises that we are facing. Most of those guys that are being punished for lending to the oil and gas sector, we have seen now from the first subsidy removal that the genuine importers of oil have not been paid their subsidy. Some of them, I mean, look at what these guys are saying about the House of Assembly. They are saying that we are even finding that the subsidy amount might even be going to over 2 trillion because some guys are coming with genuine documentation that look, we are not even being paid. What that means is that if that guy borrowed money from the bank to import, he won't be paid. Credit will have gone bad, and the MD will be sacked for it. Now, let us even go away from the issue of sacking. Look at the kind of interest rate that we have right now. Benchmark interest rate is 12%, which means CBN will lend to banks at 14%. Right? It's
not 12. I thought that 12% was the amount. Okay, plus or minus 2.
There's corridor.
Okay.
The corridor, 12% is the center point.
Okay.
10% is how much CBN pays the bank for depositing money with them. Okay. 14% is what they give to them. So if the bank wants to give you money now, it has to be 14% plus their cost of fund. According to CBN, their cost of fund is an average of 4 to 5%.
Okay, so at the end of the day,
they can't lend you anything less than 20%. Now, if you are a businessman, the meaning is that you must make sure that your cost of operation give you operation profit of 20% that can cover your interest. Now, if you pay tax at 32%, that's 26.1%. So for you to be able to say, I'm profitable, you have to do a business that generates 30% return. How many businesses in Nigeria can give you 30% return? That's one. The banks, now, we said now the cost of fund of banks is 4 to 5%, and they can keep money in CBN at 10%. Why should the bank give me money now when you can get 5% by keeping money safely in CBN?
Interesting.
Now, Treasury bill, look at the interbank rate that you're seeing. Interbank rate is 14.2%. Treasury bill is selling for 14 to 15%. Okay. Why should the bank lend money now?